Hey everyone, it's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. I am here at Pittsfield City Hall with Mayor Marchetti. Thank you, Mayor Marchetti, for taking the time and inviting me in.
You're welcome. I told you a long time ago that conversation is always great. I think I have proved over the last year that I'm open to conversation, and anytime.
Absolutely.
As long as we stay respectful.
And on topic.
I'm not as much concerned about on topic as I am concerned about respectful.
Absolutely. And I don't think you and I have ever had a problem with that. So I've been looking forward to this interview because it's the first time I've been back in City Hall in almost a decade.
Nothing changed.
No, but it's still a beautiful building.
It is.
So today we're going to talk about the new tote system that has been implemented for our garbage in the city. And a lot of people sent me questions. So we're just going to go right to it with that. So the first question, which is a big question that if you've ever heard me in some of my other videos that I've talked about, is the size of the tote and that it had to be one specific size. So the 48 gallon is what the city ended up choosing. And is that the case, that only one size tote can be used?
So, no. And I want to explain.
Okay.
Because I think it's important to put the explanation out there. When we were going through our conversations, I was struggling between 48 gallon and 64 gallon. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that it makes that much of a difference, unless the design of the tote makes a difference. If you go back to the city council meeting where we approved the contract, there was a statement made that I took a different way. And so we talked about calibrations of the toters and what we could pick up and what we could pick up. If you go back and you listen, there is something to do with the calibration, and I couldn't use both a 32 and a 64. So from a calibration standpoint, 48 up could have been manageable, 32 and something else was not. And I think that throughout the process, no matter what I did, I was going to lose, right? A 48 gallon tote is too small to many. If you talk to our senior residents, it's too big for many. So even at the 48 gallon, did I make the right decision? There's a number of people who are going to tell me no. There's going to be a number of people that tell me too small, too big. So I've been paying attention, and I did question Killian Flynn at one point in time about it, and he's like, no, you didn't get it right.
Who is that?
So Killian Flynn is the big area manager for Casella.
Okay.
And he was the one that I was negotiating with. So I went back to the meeting and actually watched that clip. And so to help feed all this stuff, I've got nothing to hide. Yes, there was a misunderstanding. If people go back to I think it was May of 2014, and you watch the meeting that we were approving the contract, there was a very clear statement that from a calibration, you can't use 32. I mistook that as calibration for all. But I do think that it's important, as we're having this conversation, to kind of talk about the growing pains that we had going through this, but also to talk about the fact that Casella also has a side business where they lease totes to different households and different families, and one day a week they have a private route that goes through the city of Pittsfield to pick things up. And there's clearly a different size tote for that pickup than the rest of the city. Okay,
because I have received a lot of messages on that, which did confuse people a little.
Well, and I also think, during the process, and I think it's important for me to be able to say to folks, listen, I'm not the enemy, right? And we can disagree about the size of the tote, but that doesn't make the concept or the decision to go in that direction a bad thing. And I think I've heard you say a number of times that I do support the mayor's proposal. I do support whether we agree if it should be 48 or 64. It's okay to disagree. And I can line up just as many people that tell me one way or the other. So you got to kind of make a decision. And people will say, well, how come you didn't meet in the middle? Well, I think I did. There's 32, there's 96. The middle was 48 and 64. I chose the lower part of the middle, but I picked the middle.
Okay. And now I would agree with you on that, because about as far as half of the people, at least even through my page, half of the people say it's more than big enough. I have extra room. I've even had seen comments where people have said, I've told my neighbors that they're more than welcome to use the rest of the space in mine. One of the things we're seeing, though, a lot of, and I've seen it myself, is people piling bags up on top, which kind of defeats the purpose, because it provides a big challenge, I think, for the driver that's picking it up, because as soon as those fall, I've seen them have to get out, pick it up, and it's one person in that truck. So the days of them having 2, 3 on the truck, and now it's creating more work, and I think probably taking longer on the route. Is that something that the city will be enforcing, as far as that the lids have to be closed on that?
It will be. So just a kind of an explanation of where we are today and where we've been. As we were rolling out the system, I wanted to allow enough time to educate. And I know I hear all the time that I really didn't implement well and I really didn't communicate well. I'm not sure what more I could do to communicate, right? We started out in the very beginning with a postcard that said, hey, this is coming your way. Stay tuned. We had 3 meetings across the city pre-vote of the contract. We had 6 meetings throughout the city post-contract about implementation. Some of them even were happening as the routes were being transitioned into either recycling or trash collection. And so we asked Casella to be lenient in the beginning. It becomes, at what point in time do you have to stop being lenient and saying, hey, you're not paying attention? It was interesting to me as I was driving around town, as we were trying to make the transition from being lenient to start to tag people, to say you're doing this the wrong way, that for all the folks that say I don't communicate well, that little baggie with the trifold that explained the whole entire program was still hanging from the toter. So, geez, all the information about how was there. Apparently you didn't see it to rip it off, to be able to read it, to do what you need to do. So we went through a period of time where Casella was tagging. That becomes difficult, because if people were just putting up bags on the street, how do you tag it? Because if you tag the bag and then pick up the bag, nobody
Right.
sees the tag. So there was a period of time that we were tagging and not picking up to try to push the stuff along. There were a number of totes that were tagged that, and here's the problem. Can I safely say that if your cover is open an inch or 2, Casella can pick it up and it won't be a problem? I probably could say that. But then when you have it open 6 or 7 inches, the mayor said it was okay to leave the top open. No, he didn't say that. He said maybe an inch or 2. So how do you create something that's black and white? Because there is some gray space there, but there's not this much gray space. There's only this much gray space.
Now, where are we as far as the people that have requested second garbage totes? Because I think that was an issue with some of the messages I saw where people saying, look, I ordered one. I don't know what to do. I've got trash building up.
So I never understood the problem with the trash piece. And as we've put out, in terms of requesting, we have had 2 to 1 in favor of asking for additional recyclable toters versus trash toters. We never ran out of trash toters. So the delay in receiving trash toters, I can't understand or comprehend. I know that as we were preparing to go to City Council to give them an update, which we did in January, and we also gave the same update after the recycling piece, and strategically said after the, why are we doing it like this? We knew there were going to be bumps in the road, and why would we do an entire city in one day and then go, oh my God, look at the problems that we have. And so we gradually put it through for recycling and gradually put it through for trash. So I don't understand the trash piece.
Is that, as far as
But
you know,
as
is
far as I
that,
know, folks have all of their recyclables and all of their trash toters that they ordered, and I'm not talking about the people that ordered yesterday or in the last week or two, but anybody that ordered in the October-November timeframe, it is my understanding that Casella has delivered all of those toters to everyone. Now, I spot checked some of those. You know, I don't believe that social media is the way that the mayor should get information. But I spot checked some. When I saw someone I knew, I reached out and said, hey, what's your address? Let me double check. Because what I wanted to be sure of is that if you think you ordered a tote, I want to make sure you're on the list. That's problem number one, right?
has that happened?
And that has happened where people have claimed that they have ordered one and they're not on a list someplace. And, you know, when you look at the fact that we had 4,000 or 5,000 additional toters requested between trash and recycling, it's understandable that someone made a mistake somewhere, or, you know, potentially we transmitted a list and that list got lost in transmission, or you got the list and you forgot about it. You know, there's a whole bunch of reasons of why.
Now, when they're asking for a second container, is that through the city or directly through Casella?
So it could have been multiple ways. Like when we first started, we said, call this number. Well, the number of phone calls was just kind of outrageous. And I just kind of went, time out. Like, you're calling, you're putting on a list, you're calling, you're putting on a list. If that's becoming your job, then that doesn't make sense to me. We have the capabilities and technology to put an online form. And so we put the online form out there, and that makes sense to me because you don't need to keep up with those, right? You can process 20 of those tomorrow. You don't have to do it today. But with that system, there was really no, hey, we got your confirmation for another tote. So I think people are in limbo. And one of our bigger problems is I ordered one today and I ordered one tomorrow, and now I've ordered two. Well, we don't know that you mistakenly ordered two, so we may have delivered two. And then you're calling and saying, hey, I didn't want to. Well, you asked for two. And so I think all of those bugs have been worked out. And I also, you know, I think when folks are seeing things throughout the entire implementation process, regardless of how I felt about it or not, we asked residents for the mayor's office to be the first line of complaining. I wanted to know, like, is it not being picked up, or is something too much being picked up? And there were 3 sets of numbers. You could call City Hall, mayor's office, you could call DPU, or you could call Casella. And we asked folks to do it in the order of the mayor's office, DPU, and Casella. And that point was, if I'm getting 10,000 phone calls a day, I know we fell down on something.
And is the communication from Casella to your office, are you happy with that?
There were times that I was not. I think that we've all kind of gotten the same page. You know, I think from a Casella standpoint, or, you know, even before Casella, Republic Services standpoint, this has been something that many communities, and Pittsfield has tried several times, you know, to get there, to drive around town. I mean, I think we can check the box that it was a success. I still believe that we have issues that need to be addressed. And again, what's the proper way of addressing them? Is that I need to hire someone to read all the social media comments to know where I have a problem? Or is it fair to ask residents to call the mayor's office and say, here's my problem, can you fix it? Or go to the Acela app, PitSmart, and put in a complaint there. And then I worry about the PitSmart piece, because then how well are we monitoring that piece?
One of the cool things that Meta has changed with the AI is the summarizing. And it breaks it down to, tells you this many people think this, and that has been helpful to me, because sometimes I get 10 comments, sometimes I get 800 or 900 and they get lost. So the first thing I do now is I look at that AI summary and I say, okay, well, 72% are saying this. Just like the way we started this conversation, it seems to be right down the middle. Half the people say this is great, I have plenty of room, I have no problems, and it seems to be families and some renters. I showed you a message before we did the interview, and I want to touch on that because it's an individual that owns next to a property that has tenants, and the garbage is being stacked up and ends up in her yard, and she's very frustrated. What is there a solution for those people coming with that? And I guess that would be some kind of, I don't want to say penalizing people, but giving them warnings and then going from there.
Well, and so we are into the enforcement stages. And to begin with, we were using the data that Casella was providing. And so we did start sending out warning letters that you're not abiding by the new trash procedures. Those ranged from a variety of things. Some of them were people were putting the wrong recyclables out on the wrong date. Pause. Why is that? Because we went to a toter system problem. If people were putting out the wrong recyclables, they were probably putting out the wrong recyclables before. The notion that the recyclable carts are too small is intriguing to me because we used to do the little 10-gallon blue bucket, and now you have a 48-gallon bucket with a lid.
And you can get an additional one at no charge.
Right. So that kind of, when I'm hearing those kind of concerns, it baffles me. I live on Valentine Road, no big secret. I think it's a wind tunnel. I have not had a problem with my either recyclables or my trash blowing over.
Okay, that's the next question I wanted to ask.
Right. I have had some issues where my lid will blow up. And then, of course, being really sensitive to it and having folks know where I live, I'm running up and down my driveway closing the lid because if someone goes by my house and sees the lid open, that there's going to be 1,000 social media comments that the mayor's lid is open. And it's not because it's overflowing, it's because of the angle of the cart and the lid blew over. But it's people putting up bags, people using their own personal toters and not using the ones that we've delivered. And the Casella list, in a week's worth of time, provided us with 700 problems. Okay, 700 problems, 17,000 households. I think we're doing pretty good, right? There's not, but then we started sending out the notices, and some people were calling saying, hey, this isn't my house. So now I was panicking that why am I sending out a letter based on what Casella's telling me, and then they're saying it's not my house. Pause. So we implemented, one of the health inspectors gets a 1 day a week, they get a route. They're out driving around into the routes and saying, okay, who's following or not following.
So is that who's handling the enforcement?
So the health department is handling the enforcement, and they're now out. I think that it's a real challenge, and I understand the challenges when we start talking about, where do the problems come up? And the problems come up with larger families, and then we always make the dot to, well, because they're a larger family, they can't afford more. And so I kind of pause and say, this is a slippery slope for me, and this is going to get me in trouble. But when we did unlimited curbside trash pickup, anyone could put out anything that they wanted to. When I was a single person or a person of two, and I was putting out 1 or 2 13-gallon bags of trash, or I'm a senior and I'm doing that, who was supplementing the bill for the large family? Myself and the seniors.
And I think, as we all know, there was an issue with people coming in from surrounding communities.
And dropping trash too. And, people will say, no, that doesn't happen. But I can't determine how many tons of trash came from other communities, right? Now it's harder because if you can't fit your trash, you can't take your son or daughter or your mother or father or whoever's trash. So, I think that somewhat changed, but seniors were helping to flip the bill for larger families. And I think I hear from a lot of seniors that I'm on a fixed income, but now that's a shrinking income. So was it fair for the seniors to be doing what they do? Larger families assume they have kids. I pay the same tax rate, and the seniors pay the same tax rate as a large family. I don't put kids, or they don't put kids through the Pittsfield public school system. And in New York State, they have a school tax that if you're not involved, you don't have to pay. slippery slope, because personally I believe that as a community we should all support education and we should all make sure that we're doing our job. But when these things shift, we're not talking about who subsidized before. Now this is a large family tax and I'm not being fair. Well, was it fair before, right? And depending upon who we talk to and when this airs, we'll find out how well this sits. But isn't that the truth? And I got into a conversation one day with someone with a larger family, and I just said, let me ask this question. And I know it's different because you can choose to or not to. But if you go out to eat, can you look at the waiter and say, geez, I can only afford to pay for the family of two, like the family next to me. Is that what my bill's going to be? And so I think in some regards, we know if you have a larger family, your expenses are more. And as I said recently at the council meeting, and this goes to the trash lining up, first of all, we should be addressing those, because that will get us into future problems. And right now it's wintertime, so it's not a big deal. It's not smelling up a neighborhood. But come May, June, and July, if that's what we're doing, and so we'll take these months to fix that. But with any new proposal, I wanted to get it implemented. I want to see the savings, because there were a lot of doubting Thomases that said I wouldn't save any money. The data is clearly showing that we're all trending in the right direction. As I said last night at the joint school committee city council meeting, we have now trended to the place for the first time we had less than 1,000 tons of trash in a month. Our recycling rate is now at 20%. So things are moving in the direction that we want them to. Let's know what our savings are.
Now, does that include, because this is something I wanted to ask about, I've heard a lot of people about dumping. I've heard business owners that are saying, we've had to lock up our dumpsters and now people are piling trash on the sides of our dumpsters. When that total number you have, does that include what the city workers are taking from the parks and everywhere? Is that incorporated into that?